Hello, everybody who's joining us today for our Read, Write, Roar professional learning. We're so glad to see you here today. Welcome, welcome. Well, I'm going to get us started here, and we welcome you back. This is our fourth professional learning of the Literacy Essentials series that we've been offering, a partnership with the Michigan Learning Channel and MAISA. My name is Annie Spear, and I am an early literacy professional learning grant coordinator at MAISA, which stands for the Michigan Association of Intermediate School Administrators. And I am also privileged to be a first grade teacher on Read, Write, Roar. So again, as you're coming in, we invite you to write your name into the chat, where you're from, and what you teach. It's wonderful to be able to see who's with us here today. We have some other people in the room today that support this work. I know that I can see Dr. Rhonda Provost, who's here today. She is our project coordinator for this work on the MAISA side. So Rhonda, if you want to unmute and say hi so people see your face.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. We appreciate your time, and we have some really great lessons to share with you from the Michigan Learning Channel.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. And I don't think one of the people I saw who was here is Tara Hardy, who's from DPTV, and she does education work. So Tara, you weren't expecting me to do that, but maybe if you want to unmute and say hi, people can see your face too today.
Yes, hello, I'm Tara Hardy. I am the Director of Education Engagement for the Michigan Learning Channel and for Detroit Public Television. And really quick, just want to encourage you to get in touch with your local coordinators. They should all be here.
Oh, great. We have our coordinators. Excellent. We do have a slide and we will talk about them and show you who they are. And I'm really thrilled that Jody Pung is able to be the co-host with, or the co-facilitator with me today. So Jody, would you unmute and say hello for everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here today. You are in for a treat. We've got lots of fun learning today. So thank you for joining us. I'm Jody Pung from Ionia County ISD. I am one of the kindergarten teachers on Read, Write, Roar.
Thanks, Jody. Unfortunately, Tana Hoffman, who is going to join us today, is unable to be here. But we really did want to represent the UP. So we are going to share a lesson today that was done by Michigan Learning Channel teacher Chandra Ziegler, who did some excellent work at MLC and has moved on to other things now, but she'll be representing the UP for us today. And then we also will share an opportunity to see Tana present in another space where you can hear her talk about Read Aloud. So yes, I see a shout out in the chat to the UP teachers. We love our UP teachers as well. So we're really going to dive in today and learn about using Read Alouds to build content and vocabulary knowledge. Before we get started, we want to make sure you have a few resources that will help you. We'll be referring to these throughout our presentation today. One is the Essential Instructional Practices in Early Literacy for grades K to 3. We'll be linking our lessons to that throughout today. We want you to know that the essentials are for teachers. So that really helps educators know how we should best instruct children based on research findings. And we also are going to give you some links to learning standards. The standards are the what. It's what children are expected to learn at different grade levels. So in our learner guide today, you're going to see our Michigan ELA standards, the science standards, the Michigan social studies standards, and all of those are based on national standards. And again, will be linked in a learner guide and available for you going forward. I want to thank you all for being here on behalf of the Michigan Learning Channel for attending, again, our fourth Literacy Essentials Professional Learning Series. And we'd also like to thank the MEMIC Foundation for their sponsorship of this workshop series that we're providing for you. At the end of our session today, MEMIC Foundation has a short video that you'll be able to watch, and that's going to highlight some of the grants that they have available for you to apply to, and it's going to tell you how to apply. So you'll want to hang on to hear all about that. So for those of you who don't know, if this is your first interaction with the Michigan Learning Channel, this is a 24/7 over-the-air broadcast channel that's available through your local PBS stations. So you can see on this map here, it's outlining the different regions, and these are showing where these stations are. It's also available online at michiganlearning.org. And on michiganlearning.org, you can find a live stream, you can find on-demand episodes, which are searchable by learning standards for many of them. The learner guides are in there. There's extension activities in there for many of the programs, and there's a lot of teacher resources. And from a personal point of view, I would tell you that I have downloaded the DPTV app, so Detroit Public Television app, and you can also, within that app, there's a link that says Michigan Learning Channel, and you can get to all resources that way too. So just some ways for you to keep learning even after today and engaging with all there is to offer on the Michigan Learning Channel. As Tara mentioned when she said hello to us earlier today, there are engagement coordinators because one of the goals of the Michigan Learning Channel is helping educators. And so as part of that mission, there are engagement coordinators at stations that are spread throughout the state. So if you'd like to know more about the Michigan Learning Channel and be able to interact with your engagement coordinators, they would love to meet with you. I've had the opportunity to engage with a couple of them myself, and they're just wonderful. So we really do encourage you to contact the coordinator in your area, and they'll be glad to show you how the Michigan Learning Channel resources can help and support you with your work. So here's our agenda of what we're going to do today. We're going to do some inside the lesson work today. We'll be looking at 2 different videos, and in those videos, those will be showing you how you can incorporate vocabulary words and repeated opportunities with new vocabulary words. We'll have some time for Q&A and breakout rooms, and then you're going to be able to see that other lesson I mentioned with Mrs. Ziegler, and that's going to be a Read Aloud to support inferring about story elements. You can receive sketches for today. We're going to ask that you sign in. So you'll see that in the chat, a sign-in form is there for you. And if you're not sure which ISD you are a part of, there's a map that can help with that. That's also in the chat. And if you're not from any Michigan ISDs and are joining us from out of state or don't have an affiliation, you can also say other for that. Okay, so we've had this opportunity to get a lot of our sort of logistics and background information done. And now we really want to dig into essential number 2. So essential number 2 from the Essential Instructional Practices in Early Literacy is all about read alouds, and all of our read aloud lessons are grounded in this essential. Essential 2 STEM says we want to have read alouds of age appropriate books and other materials, print or digital. So you see what's highlighted in yellow. These are the things that we're able to do within lessons across the different read, write, roar episodes that we have. And throughout the different grade levels, we've really focused on bullets 1, 2, 3, and 5 in different ways. So we'll be digging into this today as we are together. We want you to know that as a part of our marking period planning that we've been doing, each grade level is focusing on the first bullet and really trying to work to make text sets. And you'll notice that we get permission to use these books. So we can't just use any books. We really have to get specialized permission from publishers to be able to use these materials on broadcast. So using what we can with the relationships we have with them, we create text sets and really helps to support that bullet 1 where we want to have text sets that really support kids because they're thematically and conceptually related, and they offer opportunities for children to learn in ways that children could not do this independently. So the other thing I want you to think about is when I mentioned the bullets that we do support, I did leave bullet 4 out because we don't have kids in front of us to have this interactive discussion and conversation. But even though we don't have that, we really try and offer the opportunity and reach out to kids by posing questions and offering different opportunities for them to think about those higher order questions with read alouds within our lessons. Okay, so that first slide we saw was essential 2 bullets 1 through 4. And this whole slide is essential 2 bullet 5, which is a huge bullet talking about instructional strategies depending on the grade level and children's needs. And so essential 2 bullet 5, we focus on all these different bullets throughout different read alouds. Today's lessons that you'll see will be a lot around sub bullet 2 around word recognition, sub bullet 3, which is around knowledge of features of text, and then sub bullet 5 around vocabulary. And seeing great introductions in the chat. Do feel free to let us know who you are, and we see some of our engagement coordinators are saying hi in the chat to us. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about on our next slide is about this text set giveaway. So, oh, sorry, no, it's not. I'm just joking. We're going to talk about what text sets are. So we're showing you an example of what the text sets could be. So this is an example of what we use in first grade in our episodes for 201 to 216. And we work really hard to try and create these thematically and conceptually related different books so kids can learn throughout. So our big question that we were doing in marking period 2, was connected to science and the NGSS standards, which a big question was, how does the daytime and nighttime sky change each day and throughout the year? And what effect does that have? And so to give you a little bit of background research, there's lots of studies done around text sets, and one done by Dr. Tanya Wright and her colleagues Cervetti and Huang in 2016 proved that when children are exposed to multiple sets of text on the same topic, they not only prove to be more proficient with the targeted vocabulary, but they also pick up incidental general words, and then they have more knowledge and they can have more recall on a topic. So Dr. Wright, speaking from our experience of MAISA, is incredibly supportive to us in all the work we do in our network. And she's really worked hard to help educators understand the power and importance of read alouds. And there's just so much research about how important read alouds are. So if you're going to skip something, a read aloud is not the thing to skip. You'll see today, hopefully, how many things you can teach with a read aloud when you've done that purposeful planning. In the learner guide, we did provide a link to an article that Dr. Wright wrote from American Educators. So you'll have that for your future enjoyment and reference. And then here's that little sneak peek. I said we would be giving out some text sets today, and we will. So at the end, make sure you stay on as we close out into the feedback. You'll be able to put your name in a drawing, and we're going to give away a text set of books that were featured in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And you can pick which grade level will meet your needs best. So I'm going to turn things over to Jody, who's going to share a little bit more with us about Essential 7.
Thank you, Annie. So as Annie mentioned, we're going to be digging into Essential 2, but we're also going to be digging in deep with Essential 7. If you are not familiar with Essential 7 is intentional and ambitious efforts to build vocabulary and content knowledge. And you're going to see that in our lessons today. I want to share with you a quick quote from Dr. Tanya Wright. Definitional knowledge is not enough. If we're going to use words to read, to write, to speak, to listen, to learn in life and in school, we need to go deeper than just knowing definitions. And that's what we're going to be seeing today, is helping students be able to dig deeper with vocabulary knowledge. So you'll notice highlighted in yellow are the areas that we're going to focus on, those specific bullets. Bullet 1 being selecting Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary to teach from informational and fictional text. Also introducing those words with child-friendly definitions, making sure that students have within bullet 3 repeated opportunities and deeper levels of exposure to those words. And then lastly, you'll notice that we'll focus on morphology in some of our lessons, looking at word parts, root words, prefixes, and suffixes. So some of those you'll see in our lesson today. I want you to think about, and we're going to go to the chat here for just a second, back up to that bullet number 1. Selecting Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary words. Go to the chat if you would, please. And I want you to think about what instantly comes to mind when you hear Tier 2 and Tier 3. PBIS, yes, that's right. RTI, MTSS, all of those things. We think about those levels of instruction. What we want you to know within Essential number 7, specifically when we say Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary, our brains automatically sometimes go to RTI or MTSS. But what we want you to know with Tier 2 and Tier 3 vocabulary words, a Tier 2 vocabulary word is a word that can be used cross-curricularly. It's a word that many students may not have knowledge of, but it can be used in multiple situations. Tier 1 vocabulary words are words that are high frequency words, words that many children already know. They're part of our common language. Then when we jump to Tier 3 vocabulary words, those Tier 3 vocabulary words are generally very content specific, and they really help us in supporting our comprehension of the text that we're reading. So Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 vocabulary words, while our brain often goes to MTSS, it really has a different level of meaning. So we want to be thinking about what those words mean as we're selecting those words to help support comprehension. So that's a little bit about Essential 7, and we'll get ready to be moving on to seeing this in our lessons next. We also want to think about when we get ready to move into planning our instruction for read alouds. As Annie mentioned earlier, utilizing an interactive read aloud is one of the best opportunities for instruction in the classroom. We never want to skip that. So when we think about the steps to planning an interactive read aloud, We want to make sure that we're choosing words to teach that are going to support the context, support the topic, and support comprehension. We want to pick words that they don't know the meaning of yet, and words that also support the concept. We want to make sure that we introduce those words in a child-friendly way. We want students not just to hear the words, but also to speak the words and to say the words. We want them to see the phonological representation and see the word parts and see those sound spellings that correspond with that word. We also want students to have multiple opportunities for repeated exposure to help them really gain a deeper level of knowledge. As Dr. Tanya Wright said, it's not enough to just know the definition. We want them to know multiple ways to use that word, the synonyms, the antonyms, all different ways to ingrain the meaning of that word. So we're going to look at those in opportunities with our Read, Write, Roar lessons in just a moment. I'm going to switch this back over to Annie so that Annie can talk to us about some of the skills that you'll see in our Read Aloud lessons today.
Thanks, Jody. Yes, I'm really glad that Jody was able to talk with you about those tier 1 and tier 2 meanings, right? And meanings have so much of an impact about that. So it's really important that when we're reading, we all have the same shared language and understanding of the words that we're reading. And those types of things really need to be done for our students. So I want you to just look at what we have here for Read Aloud skills. If you've been to one of our other professional learnings, you've seen these. What we try and provide for you are different skills that might be done within our Read, Write, Roar lessons. Now, this is a global view across all the lessons, not particularly what you're going to see today. But for instance, we want you to know that you can find out really quickly what standards and what essential practices you're doing. So this shows the skills taught in Read Aloud lessons, the connections to the essential instructional practices. And you'll note that the acronym EIP is used, which stands for Essential Instructional Practice. And then following that is a number that references the essential number, and the second number after the period is the bullet. So for example, if you have this one, print concepts, and it says EIP 2.5A. So that stands for Essential Instructional Practice 2, bullet 5, sub-bullet A. And then this works the same with the MyELA standards. So for example, RL.2.5, the RL stands for reading literature, the 2 for grade 2, and the 5 for the 5th strand. So you'll have these for your planning. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Jody so she can help us dig right into a lesson.
Thanks, Annie. So today you are going to get the opportunity to see a section of a kindergarten lesson and then also a section of a first grade lesson. The first lesson that we're going to get to see today is a first grade lesson. This is from Miss Rogers. I believe Miss Rogers might be here with us today. Sharnita, if you are here with us, I would love if you would unmute and say hello. She might not be on. So within Sharnita's lesson, Miss Rogers today, you will notice that this lesson is from our Read, Write, Roar series. It's a first grade lesson and it focuses on utilizing vocabulary within a read aloud. You'll see that there were 3 to 4 words selected. She'll give a brief introduction to those words. You'll notice there's an opportunity for students to say the words. She'll present those words on word cards for students to be able to see the spelling of those words. She'll give a student-friendly definition and they get the opportunity to pronounce that as well. Then they'll jump into context and you'll hear the repeated opportunities to hear that word in context in this lesson today. This lesson, students are going to get the opportunity to see body movements to also align with the meanings of these words. The only materials needed are just a copy of the text and then also those vocabulary cards. So I want you to think about how this might be replicated in a classroom setting. You'll notice even though students are not present in front of us, we try to give students multiple opportunities to respond and to engage and interact with the learning. And as we mentioned earlier, this lesson is specifically aligned to Essential 2, Interactive Read Alouds, and then also Essential 7. Let's get ready to see what that looks like. In the chat, you're going to see there is going to be a form for you to be able to take some notes on. We ask that you click on that link and that's going to have you make a copy of the form. This is a reflection form for you to just jot down some notes. You'll be able to use that for both of the lessons that you're going to see here shortly.
Hello, readers, I'm Miss Rogers. Today we're going to go back to a book that we read about the seasons. It's entitled The Reason for the Seasons, and it's written and illustrated by Ellie Peterson, and it's used with permission by Boyd's, Mills, and Kane. When we read this story before, there were many new interesting things that we learned. Today we're going to focus on 4 vocabulary words. Now I have one more vocabulary word for you, and that word is, let's see if you can figure it out. Remember, I did this for rotation or rotate. Now I'm going to do this one for this word, tilt. Okay, give you another clue. Now I'm going to do my head that way by bending my neck to the side. Tilt. Tilt means to move to one side. Okay, so I moved my neck and I tilted my neck to the side. So it's kind of off balance. So let's see you tilt. Ready? Now let's tilt our whole bodies. Ooh, how low can I go? Okay, don't fall. Okay, tilt. So guess what else is tilting? The earth tilts. So let's see what our book is going to tell us about the earth tilting. All right, so my page says, our planet is tilted. Did you know that? Do you remember that? Now that's exciting. It says, if Earth wasn't tilted, we would have no seasons at all. Scientists think Earth became tilted when a meteor the size of Mars hit it, way back when our planet was first formed. And it's not just us. Uranus is tilted sideways, and Venus is tilted upside down like that. Ooh. Causing it to spin backward. Oh my, I didn't know all of that. Did you? Yeah, you sure did, because we read this book before and you have an awesome memory. Excellent job. So we read a lot of words that have a lot to do with our Earth. Now let's review them. We have hemisphere, we have opposite, we have rotate, and we also have my favorite one. Let's do it. Tilt. Very good. Now I want you to talk to a respected adult and see if you can use these words in a sentence or even find them in a different book. I'll see you next time.
That's so much fun to see how Miss Rogers uses that word tilt. We'll have a chance to talk to some of the other people in the room about that in just a minute. The next lesson that you're going to get a chance to see is a kindergarten lesson from Read, Write, Roar. You will see that this lesson is an opportunity for repeated exposure of new vocabulary words. So in this lesson, you're going to see that some words were selected from the story that we had previously read called What is a Flood by Robin Johnson. You'll notice that the students will repeat the vocabulary words. They'll hear that child-friendly definition. They then clap the syllables so that they can hear the word parts. They'll get to see that word back in the context again and hear it read within the story. Then we make some movements, just like you saw with Miss Rogers. You'll see those movements repeated with different words to help students make a deeper level of connection with that. They'll then have a chance to use the word in a sentence, and that's a great way for kids to make those personal connections as well. The only materials that you would need for a lesson like this might be a pocket chart, vocabulary cards. You'll notice within the lesson that I use props to help support a level of engagement and also to help students have a deeper level of knowledge. So you could be thinking about how students could use this type of lesson within the classroom and how you might create even more engagement by having dialogue between peers, and another way for students to make those personal connections by maybe doing a turn and talk opportunity with each other. So as we get ready to look at this, think about how you might use this in the classroom as well. This lesson also aligns to Essential 7, Bullets 1 and Bullets 3. And you can use that same reflection sheet that we used previously to take some notes on.
Friends, we learned many new words in our story today. Now it's time to learn more about 3 of those words. Our first word is the word overflow. Can you say overflow? Great. Overflow means to spill over the edge. Overflow. Our movement for overflow is going to be this. Put your hands together and we're going to flow over the edge. Can you do that with me? Overflow. Over the edge. To spill over the edge. Let's see what our book said about the word overflow. In our book it says, if a lot of rain falls in a short amount of time, rivers can overflow or spill over their sides. Overflow. Let's clap the syllables in the word overflow. Ready? O-ver-flow. How many syllables did you hear? 3. There are 3 syllables in the word overflow. Now, let's use overflow in a sentence. If I pour too much milk, my cup will overflow. Overflow. To spill over the sides. Our next word is the word melt. Can you say melt? Great. Melt means to change from a solid to a liquid by heating up. Melt. Our movement for melt is this. Put your hands together like a ball. We're going to change from a solid to a liquid. Ready? Melt. Do it one more time with me. Solid to a liquid. Melt. Great. Let's see what the book said about the word melt. In our book it says, floods can also happen if a lot of snow melts faster than the ground can soak it up. Melt. Let's clap the syllables in the word melt. Ready? Melt. How many syllables did you hear? 1. There's just 1 syllable in the word melt. Now let's use melt in a sentence. My snowball started to melt when the sun came out. Melt. Let's do the movement one more time. Solid to a liquid. Melt. Our next word is the word evacuate. Can you say evacuate? Great job. Evacuate means to leave a place of danger. Evacuate. Our movement for evacuate is going to be this. Can you do it with me? We're leaving a place of danger. We're going to evacuate. All right, let's see what the book said about the word evacuate. In our book it says, you and your family may be told by police to evacuate your home for a while if it's not safe to stay there. Evacuate. Let's clap the syllables in the word evacuate. Ready? E-vac-u-ate. How many syllables did you hear? 4. There are 4 syllables in the word evacuate. Let's use evacuate in a sentence. When I heard the fire alarm, we all began to evacuate. Evacuate, to leave a place of danger. Let's do our movements and say our words one more time. Overflow, to spill over the edge. Overflow. Melt, to change from a solid to a liquid. And evacuate, to leave a place of danger. Great job, readers and writers, learning some new words with me today.
Okay, so we had a chance to see a first grade clip and a kindergarten clip from Read, Write, Roar. And now we're going to get ready to put you into some breakout rooms so you can have a chance to talk about your reflections and some of the things that you saw with other people in the room today. We've posted a couple of questions up on the screen, and you guys can look at those questions and decide if you want to talk about all of them or maybe just talk about one of them today, thinking about what opportunities did you see, what practices might you try to implement, or maybe what questions you have. As we get ready to put you into breakout rooms, please take note of the number breakout room, just in case you get disconnected. We want to be able to put you in the back into that same room. So let's go ahead and jump into those breakout rooms. When we get back, we'll give you a chance to share. But if, as you're coming back into the room, if you want to share out something into the chat that maybe you guys talked about during your breakout session, maybe a connection or something that really resonated with you, we'd love to see that in the chat. The incorporation of movement, that's something we talked about as well, is how that really helps students to remember those words when they have a movement to attach it to. Yeah.
I love what Hannah wrote there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jody.
No, go ahead.
Just Hannah put in about the intentionality of the Read Aloud. It really does make a difference. And so, yeah, thanks for noticing that and how it's not just a filler, but there's so many instructional moves that you make throughout a Read Aloud, and you're really teaching children so much with these.
Yeah, and just the opportunities for lots of different ways to dig in deeper with the words, counting the syllables and making those connections. And that really is helpful for kids to be able to know more than just the definition. And then you can think about how you can go deeper with this in your classroom. You know, when we're on the Read, Write, Roar channel, we only have so much time and so much level of engagement that we can create when we don't have students in front of us. But we think about how we can even go deeper with creating more understanding of words that mean the same or words that mean the opposite, and helping us to make those personal connections is a really great way for kids to know more than just the definition about that word. Awesome. Thanks so much for taking to the chat. Lots of great comments in there. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Annie. Oh, we got one more thing that I would like to share out. So some of the things that you mentioned in the chat, what we want you to think about when it comes to vocabulary instruction and the repeated opportunities is that having specific practices in mind and intentionality can really help you as a teacher be more focused with your vocabulary instruction. So you'll notice on the screen that there's lots of different ways that you saw myself and Miss Rogers get students engaged with using that word. We would say the word and repeat the word. We saw that child-friendly definition. All of you talked about the movements that you saw, clapping the syllables, or talking about the parts of those words is really important. Also thinking about how those words are connected to text and how those words have meaning within the text is a great way for students to have more of a level of understanding. And then also thinking about having the students repeat the words, the movements, and then encouraging them to use those words in their own conversation and also in their writing is another way to really support development of vocabulary. So this just gives you some ideas. It's not the order or the routine, it's just the multiple opportunities for exposure that's really beneficial for those students. All right, Annie, I'm going to switch it over to you so we can start digging into Read Alouds.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you for all the wonderful things so many of you put in the chat. And if you happen to be in this space and you teach upper elementary students, I mean, that phonological representation just really matters. Think about if you meet a person, you know, you're out at some sort of gathering and you get introduced to someone, you often repeat their name back, right? It helps you remember it. And so that phonological representation of saying the word out loud like makes a difference. So many of these practices, there are 4 or 5 essentials, but many of these practices and pieces that we're doing with vocabulary are just going to be good practice as well. And you can refer to the 4 or 5 essentials if you're at grades 4 and 5, and those are the grades that you support. So we're going to move a little bit up in grade levels, and we're going to look at a 2nd grade lesson. As I share with you, we're really excited to be able to share a lesson that was done by Mrs. Chandra Ziegler, who, again, like I said, she's moved on from MLC to do other wonderful things in her career, but she was a fantastic teacher for us on Read, Write, Roar. And in this lesson, we're going to see that she does a book called Lubna and Pebble. This book is by Wendy Medore, and it's about a story of friendship between two young children, and they are refugees. So this story teaches so many things about kindness and friendship and empathy. We got permission from Random House to be able to use this. And like I said, the books that we choose, we have to get permission for them. So though we're limited, we've really been able to find some excellent text to be able to support us with this. When Mrs. Ziegler's doing this lesson, she has several things that she's trying to do. One is that she wants to review story elements of characters and setting and plot, right? Really important that we just want children to know. The other thing that she wants to do is focus on the story element of vocabulary, but really thinking about words beyond just those story element words of character, setting, and plot. But she introduces the words refugee and empathy to children in this. And then she helps us recognize how important the illustrations are to further understand the setting and the characters and the plot, and how those can really support us to infer meaning when we use those with the text together. And lastly, she really talks about theme and how when we take all of this together, we can help infer a theme from a story. So as you see from the chart that we put there on the page for you, these different things that you're going to see are essential to bullet 2 about modeling fluency. It's really important for kids to hear read alouds right to them, even if they're in the upper grades, right? It's really important to read aloud and have kids hear what reading should sound like and how we pause and use our voices. For bullet 3, the child-friendly definitions, you'll see again here. And for bullet 5, sub-bullet 3, she's going to talk about text structures and the key story elements. And then in bullet 7, the tier 1 and tier 2, that comes up again, where she's focusing on those words. And then she's using child-friendly definitions for the words and giving kids some opportunities. So again, we know we don't have kids with us, but she does invite conversation among children. So we're going to watch this wonderful lesson. She just really has a pocket chart, the book, and some word cards that have the words written on them so kids can see the physical representation of the word, but you can also pair it with a picture. That's another way to support it, or a movement, just like you saw Jody do. So let's watch her, and there's a reflection form for you in the chat, so you can make a copy and put your own notes in there that you would want to discuss, and hopefully we're going to have some time for the breakout room.
Hi scholars, I'm Mrs. Ziegler. Today we're going to read a story called Lubna and Pebble. While we read this story, we're going to use the illustrations and the words to help us understand the characters, setting, and plot, which will help us understand the message of the story. Before we begin, let's review some key words. The first word is characters. Say it with me. Characters. The characters in the story are the people or the animals. The second key word is setting. Say it with me. Setting. The setting of the story is where it takes place. The next key word is plot. Can you say that with me? Plot. The plot is the sequence of events that happen in the story. Great job. Now, let's begin the story. Lubna and Pebble, written by Wendy Medore and illustrated by Daniel Agnias. Lubna's best friend was a pebble. It was shiny and smooth and gray. Lubna found it on the beach when they arrived in the night. Then she fell asleep in Daddy's salty arms. When Lubna opened her eyes, it was morning. They had landed in a world of tents. Lubna clutched Daddy's hand and gripped her pebble. Somehow she knew they'd keep her safe. The author must be implying that Lubna thinks her dad and the pebble will keep her safe. So far, those are our only characters in the story. And we don't really know where the setting is yet. All we know is that they're in this world of tents and that this little pebble is going to keep her safe. Let's keep reading to see if we can learn more about little Lubna. In a big white tent, Lubna found a felt-tip pen. She drew a happy face on her pebble. "Hello, Pebble," whispered Lubna. Pebble smiled back. Lubna told Pebble everything about her brothers, about home, about the war. Pebble always listened to her stories. Pebble always smiled when she felt scared. "I love you, Pebble," Lubna said with a sigh. These 2 pages and the illustrations give us more clues about Lubna and her situation. Over here, I see this must be a memory that Lubna is having because I see her and her dad, and these must be her brothers. Over here, I see 3 jets, which I wonder if that has something to do with the war. And now Lubna's brothers aren't with them. So that world of tents she was describing makes more sense to me. That means Lubna and her dad are refugees. That's a new word. Let's talk about that word, refugee. Can you say it with me? Refugee. A refugee is someone who has to leave home because of war or other dangerous situations.
Okay, so that's when we think about read alouds and using picture books, people often think about them as being really simplistic, but you can see this example is pretty complex, right? The things that are discussed in this text. So we're going to give you a chance to get into breakout rooms for just a couple of minutes to talk about this. And then when you come back, we're going to be wrapping up and sharing out a few things with you to go and some other opportunities that we have for you coming forward. And we'll be making sure you sign out, put your name in so you can enter for a chance at tech sets. As you share thoughts with us about things you noticed about Ms. Ziegler's lesson and put them in there, we will read and hopefully just loop back to those as we close out our time together today. Okay, like she said the word, she didn't go through having to slide through that. Joni, who's on the call, was talking about teaching young fives in kindergarten, and certainly you can use these same words, right? We do need kindergarten and any children to know what a character is, right? And so for those kids, you might do that a little bit differently as you break up that word or clap it out, right? But if you're at an upper grade level, maybe you're not doing that and having to go through the words in that way. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is that we want to be able to support you in your planning for read alouds. And kind of funny, but not really. The whole planning is not optional, right? We really do have to think about these, and all of you, many of you were talking about that at the in your conversations about how important it was to have this done. So we will have this for you in the learner guide, and we hope it will help you to have some targeted lessons that are focused for your work and really be able to think about what particular groups of children might benefit from a lesson, or whether it's a whole class lesson. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And when you want to learn more, there's so many amazing modules around Essentials 2 and 7. We really encourage you to go to Michigan Virtual. You can get to that link through literacyessentials.org, where you'll find everything you need about the literacy essentials and be able to get enrolled in those modules. There's amazing learning about that. We also want to make sure that we are going to continue to have some more really important professional learning that are coming up. But if you missed the last ones, there's ways to participate in those. So you can catch the previous sessions that we did on all the different mystery words and word ladders, other word builder lessons, and writing, and that you can get to the same page and you can do get into get in to register. So if you go to michiganlearning.org and the Steal Our Lesson, you'll be able to get that. We'll make sure that that link is also in the learner guide for you. I'm going to turn things over to Jody to have her wrap some things up before we hear our from our sponsor, and then have you do your feedback form.
As always, we really want you to stay in touch. If you happen to have questions or feedback, or really would just like to connect with either Annie or I, you can find our contact information here on the screen. Also, you can see that you can stay in touch in a variety of other ways through michiganlearningchannel.org, also through Michigan Literacy, and then also thinking about you can find these videos on YouTube as well. So we are excited for the opportunity to stay connected with you, and please utilize those resources.
Okay, and so now before we end and get to our sign out and you're putting in for our giveaway, we have a short video from our sponsor, Mimic, about grants that you can apply for and how you can do that. So let's find out what there is out there for you.
Hi, I'm Pam Harlan, Director of the Mimic Foundation, and I have the distinct pleasure today to introduce you to Mimic and to share information about our classroom funding opportunities afforded through the Mimic Foundation. Now, Mimic is an insurance company that was started by a group of educators for the educational community back in 1950. That same company also started and created the Mimic Foundation for the Future of Education. Now, the Mimic Foundation is a standalone company, a nonprofit, 501c3, dedicated to supporting the educational community. We support public, private, parochial charter schools, K through 12, as well as colleges and universities. Now, I want to personally invite you, though, to join our free, underlined free, Mimic Foundation Club. Now, our Mimic Foundation Club provides all of our club members exclusive access to our many, many grant programs that we offer throughout the year. Every single month, we feature a different product that we hope will enhance the learning experience of your students. Now, we call our monthly grant programs Pop In to Win. We also offer quarterly grant programs that we think you'll enjoy as well. Now, for every one of our grants, whether it's our Pop In to Win grants or our quarterly grants, you can nominate yourself for a grant award. How do you do it? Simply log into your Foundation Club account, click a button. It's that easy, and you've applied for a grant. There is no long application at all because we know that you're busy, we know that you're working hard, and we're trying to make the process fun and easy for you. So check us out. I invite you again to visit our website, mimicfoundation.org. Learn about our current grant programs. They change every month. Just think that we have had the opportunity since 2015 alone to give out over 17,500 grant awards. And we would love to award one to you as well. Mimic stands by education. We stand by our educators. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Well, that's a very sincere message, and what wonderful opportunities we have from Mimic. So thank you, Mimic, for doing, for supporting this learning for teachers, and thank you, teachers, for all that you are doing. So we thank you, and we appreciate that you're here with us for this Michigan Learning Channel and MESA Professional Learning Session 4. Hope to see you next time at Session 5.